And now is Talkin Indie with Sandy Marie.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to today's episode of Talking Indie. Today we have Ruben, who is the game designer of Back Then. How are you doing? It's evening for you, isn't it?
It's actually late night, but thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. So let's talk video games.
Okay, you're part of a team that's worked on Back Then. You're the game designer. Can you tell me more about your role and what it entailed in the development of Back Then?
Well, we're a team of 4, and we're very versatile between ourselves. Like, all of us can do 3D modeling. All of us can draw to a certain extent. Obviously, I'm better at programming than the rest of my team. We have a dedicated artist. Everyone has their dedicated role, but we kind of just help each other along the way. So we kind of do everything. We're cool. We're the Outriders. So
yeah, you're all just like a bit of a jack of all trades. How did you guys get together as a team?
We were all in the same class in college 2 years ago when we all started. We actually met on the very first day of school, obviously, but we only formed the team at the Global Game Jam last year because the theme was home, and we all just got together and started thinking of random ideas about the theme, and eventually we were actually going to do a sleep paralysis type of game where you had to click different things really quickly, but then we ended up actually wanting to do something with a core message. And then someone brought up Alzheimer's, I think it was Achilles, if I'm not mistaken. And then we found out that we all have family with Alzheimer's, and we're like, there's our theme. Let's make a game about that. And Back Then was born, basically. In 48 hours, we made a prototype that was really, really rough around the edges, but it kind of gave the premise a really good foundation right from the get-go, and then we just started expanding more and more on top of it.
Yeah. Was this your first time delving into game development, or were you doing game development?
No, I've been making games since I was about 13 years old, so it's not exactly my first rodeo, but I published a game back when I was 19 and I finished 12th grade. I was in a programming course. We had to do a project for the end of the year type of thing, and I made a video game. And then on the same year, I went to the biggest gaming convention in Portugal, Lisbon Games Week in 2016. And then I released the game in February of 2017. And it's on Steam currently right now. So, hey.
What's that game called? Because I'll find it on Steam and I'll link it in there.
It's called A Demon's Game. But yeah, that was my first commercial project. Back Then is shaping up to be my second. But in terms of scale and complexity and actual work that went behind it, Back Then is a lot more in depth than the Demon's Game ever was. But I think we're actually going in a really, really cool direction with the game, because we've had a few weeks of brainstorming ideas and whatnot, because we went to both the biggest conventions in Portugal last year, Mosh XL Games World and Lisbon Games Week, and we had such a different amount of feedback that we knew we had something there, but it needed changes, and that's basically what we've been doing for the past few weeks.
Yeah, so a lot of constructive criticism,
Yes, actually, we were shocked, because since the theme of the game is kind of heavy, kind of like how Celeste deals with depression, we deal with Alzheimer. I mean, it's in the game's name and everything. We wanted the game to be one of those games that actually tells you something, that gives you a different perspective on something that not a lot of people give much thought to. And Alzheimer's is one of those topics, I guess.
Yeah, and it is a
Where we
heavy
live.
it is a heavy topic. Like, and I know it's something that a lot of us can relate to. Like as you said, all four of you guys in the team all had someone in your family with Alzheimer's. Yeah. I lost my great grandmother a couple of years back, and I watched her die slowly of dementia, which is very similar.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's very. Oh, she was in.
I've been through the same. I lost my grandfather in 2013 because Alzheimer's is a horrible disease. That's, there's nothing much you can do about that. But what you can do, what we're trying to do, is to give people even if it's just a brief overview of how everything works inside their head. That's an accomplishment, because if we can help people understand those who suffer from Alzheimer's, maybe we can get somewhere from there.
Yeah.
And that's basically our goal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because like she was in her late 90s, and by the end of it, like, she didn't recognize anyone. She was just a shell, pretty much. Yeah. By the end, her passing was a godsend, just so she was free, essentially, and no longer trapped. Yeah, I hate knowing that, like, anyone has to do that. And
well, it raises a few issues, though, because when we're dealing, especially because it's a video game, if it were a book or a movie even, it would be a lot more socially acceptable, I feel. But since video games are often linked to violence and whatnot, talking about heavy themes like this is kind of, it's gotten a lot more acceptable, obviously, because generations tend to keep evolving, and not a lot of people have closed-minded ideas in relation to, like, mental health and whatnot, thankfully, because it's mental health. Everyone needs mental health, let's be honest. But Alzheimer's, I think, is something that isn't touched upon that much. You have that game, That Dragon Cancer, which deals with cancer. You have Celeste, which deals with depression. You have so many examples, but none of them deal with Alzheimer's at all.
Yeah, and I find the fact that, it's in a first person's perspective, but normally you're walking. Yep. I find the fact that back then, it's not walking. I think the lead, I think the character you play is named Thomas, if I'm correctly.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, he's actually in a wheelchair, which I find very interesting. What inspired you to put him in a wheelchair?
Well, here's the thing. When we originally thought about the game, we gave the character this whole backstory, and we basically did the backstory first, and then we made the mechanics around the story. So him being on a wheelchair is basically an indicator for you to know if you're in the present or not. Because since the game has a lot of real world themes, we need to make a lot of subtle details, but tell a cohesive narrative at the same time, and that's the toughest part. But the game is going to flip-flop back and forth between his past memories and his present, and one of the many ways you'll be able to notice is if you're on the wheelchair. Because if you're on the wheelchair, then you're in the present.
Yeah, that's a creative way of going about that. Were there other ideas for that went through your head, like changing the color of it, or even having him walk with a cane during his present scenes?
We went through a lot of different ideas, because since we wanted to portray an old man but didn't want to exaggerate the old maniness, so to speak, we kind of needed something that gives a little bit more impact, but not too much impact, and we landed on the wheelchair. But yeah, we went through canes, we went through those things where you have like 4 legs and then you walk with them. I forgot the name of those things. I have no clue what they're called.
I can't remember what they're called either, and I own one.
There you go. But yeah, we went through that. I mean, we even had like ideas for like, oh, if we eventually make a house, he's gonna have like a little chair elevator and whatnot. But is that gonna impact gameplay? Are we gonna let players have how much freedom? There's a lot of variables in the game because we want to make a linear story, but at the same time give a level of freedom that not many single player games do.
Yeah, like you
And
want
we
to.
kind of just want to let you explore everything and be like, hey, the world's your oyster.
Yeah, like you want to you want to encourage the player to explore their surroundings and check everything out
possible, yeah.
without it being too much of a sandbox game, essentially.
Yeah, that's basically the goal. Yeah, because we've had demos and prototypes where it's just basically in his retirement home, and it's just a single room with a few objects and whatnot. But we've since then expanded a lot on the game, and we have multiple layers behind mechanics now, and you're gonna notice that the game changes drastically between past and present, because not only do the mechanics for movement change, because in the present you're in a wheelchair, in the past you're walking normally, but in terms of interactions, everything will change slightly as well, but not enough that it will make you change immediately, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because everything needs to be kind of blurry in his head. And so for us to give the blurry aspect to the game, we need to make those in very subtle ways, because Alzheimer's itself is a very subtle disease.
Yeah, it's not something that's noticed straight away. It's a really slow
and
decline.
We want to show a few of the phases of the disease itself.
So how would you describe back then to someone who has never heard of it before?
It's a single-player adventure game with a heavy focus on narrative that deals with a very serious real-life problem called Alzheimer's. That's basically the pitch.
In terms of storyline, without giving us spoilers, what can you tell us about it?
So you play as Thomas, and he's a very grumpy old man, and he's been through a lot, and he has Alzheimer's. Obviously, that's the very basic premise of the game, but you'll eventually be finding out more about his past as you go along the game. There's a lot of objects that tie into his narrative, and everything in the house has a different meaning towards him. There's a lot of narrative that I can't actually tell you about, but there are other
spoilers
characters.
And
I'm being very careful here. I'm choosing my words very carefully.
As you do have to.
Yeah. You have other characters that you can interact with, most notably family members, because most of them are still alive since you're the eldest of your family now. And you're going to see different interactions that he had with his family and how his family started reacting to his mind deteriorating. And we're basically going to give a lot of examples of real life situations that can happen, but at the same time, always having the message underneath. Because the thing is, the game is going to begin and end with text about the disease itself, because that's the main goal for the project, is to shine light on something that needs a bit more light on it.
Yeah, and to educate the player about Alzheimer's and
Exactly. But we want to kind of push this project a level beyond that. We want to show this project to a lot of Alzheimer's related charities and organizations and foundations and all the other words that end in Asians, because we actually feel like this can help people in a way. Sure, I mean, obviously my market isn't people who are suffering from Alzheimer's, but their families. Because even if I can help an 18-year-old boy deal with his grandfather that has Alzheimer's, then the game did its job.
Yeah, and educating family members and showing them what it's like for their family member in that perspective is because I wish I'd known more about what my grandmother was going through and that type of thing. Like when I'd visit her, she'd have no clue who I was. Like she'd be calling me Louisa who was actually her mother. So, because she didn't,
Yeah, it's rough.
because she didn't recognize me as her great granddaughter. And yeah, in the end, it was like very painful to just watch her slip away.
Yeah, it's very, very tough. And we want to kind of show that pain that they go through, but not to an extent that, makes people actually feel too bad about it. It's a very tough balance because at the end of the day, we're making a product.
Yeah.
Sure, we can have all the meaning in the world, and we do, because all of us went through it in one way or another. But controversy is a very, very precarious thing that we have to deal with, especially dealing with Alzheimer's as a disease for a video game. I mean, here in Portugal, the game industry isn't as advanced as like France, the US, Australia even, but people are starting to become more accustomed to it. I mean, we're very old-fashioned here in Portugal. We just drink little coffee cups and we're fine. That's what we do. But most people here are older than other countries in the world. Like the average age is like 40 something here. And Portugal is the fourth leading country with the most Alzheimer cases in the world as well, which is very coincidental because we're all from my team and I are all from Portugal, and we're making the project about Alzheimer's, and we had no clue that Portugal actually has such a high level of Alzheimer's in their population. But it fits, and if it fits, I sit. And so Portugal actually ended up becoming a very real market for the game, and we're going to start from Portugal and then slowly expand outwards, basically.
Yeah. Are you doing the narrative in English or Portuguese or both?
Yeah. Well, we want to release the game in multiple languages, but we write everything in English first. I mean, I've been doing English essays since I was like 17. Like all the essays I've written thus far in my life have always been in English. I think in English. I speak English more frequently than Portuguese, which is kind of ridiculous because I just grew accustomed to it. But Portuguese is hard, okay? I have an excuse. English is a lot easier.
I normally hear the opposite. Like, I normally hear from non-English speaking people that English is very hard to learn compared to a lot of other languages.
I found the contrary. I thought English just made sense in a way, like it has an ebb and flow that most languages don't have.
Yeah, like because in all honesty, English is a really weird word. Like, we've got so many words that are spelt the same and they're spelt the same, pronounced differently, and mean something differently. And although, like, I've been learning German myself, and the fact that there is so many different forms of the word "the" is confusing the hell out of me.
Now imagine we have a verb in Portuguese, which is supposedly the to be verb. There's 23 variants to it.
Oh.
Yeah, 23. I'm not kidding. What?
Yeah, so I can see how that would be complicated. So what have been your biggest hurdles since starting back then, and how did you go about overcoming them?
Biggest hurdles, huh? Probably the conventions, actually, because I personally have always been a very big fan of conventions in general, and I started going to conventions in 2015 as a consumer, and then from then on, I've always been an exhibitor, which is completely different. But having my own stand at a convention means a lot to me, because it's basically an open market and I can be the person that I want to be when I'm selling the game, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I basically, you know how content creators make this whole persona and whatnot? It's kind of the same thing, but not as exaggerated.
Yeah.
But I can't be anxious for once. I need to know what I'm saying, and I need to, understand who I'm actually talking to. And that whole like challenge, I find it really interesting because I've always been a very socially awkward person ever since I was young, and I've had issues with anxiety my whole life. But being in a convention just does something to me. It just clicks, and it makes sense. So yeah, we wanted the conventions to be as good as possible, and we wanted to just rock the floor completely, and we did. On XL Games World in November, from the 14th of the 17th, every day we basically had a small victory. On the first day, the game showed up on one of the biggest journal publications in Portugal called Public. On the second day, our sound designer and narrative writer Caleb won the PlayStation stage contest that they had. He won Death Stranding and the 3 or 4 other games. On the third day, we had Rami Ismail play the game, and he really liked it. And on the fourth day, we won People's Choice Award. So, yeah, that happened.
Yeah, that's
But
a huge thing to happen winning the People's Choice Awards. It shows that people like what they were experiencing, and well, yeah, it was an early prototype, and there is still a lot of work to be done. The premise of what you have is solid, and people are interested, which is always good to see.
That was our goal. Our goal was actually to show a prototype, a proof of concept, if you will, and then elaborate on what we wanted to do with it and see people's reactions. And most of them were positive. We've actually had a couple people that didn't want to play the game because of the actual scene of Alzheimer's, because they had family that were dealing with it currently and they felt bad. And I kind of understand, but at the same time, I think you should play it because it's not going to change the facts. It might even help you. It's a very weird balance because I want people to play the game, but at the same time, I don't want to overstep my boundaries.
Yeah, and upset anyone.
Yeah, exactly. So I have to be real careful. The Fortnite kids can all go away, though. I don't care. I don't care.
Let the Fortnite kids stay. Let them keep their Fortnite.
Kids smashing your keyboard asking for Fortnite, you get livid because they have no respect whatsoever.
Yeah.
I think conventions should just be like 14 plus. Please make it happen.
I thought they were. Because I know here you've got to. You can bring kids, but even when you bring kids, you've got to have a responsible adult who is responsible for anything that child does. But under most cases,
the same thing over here. But I don't think there's a minimum age. I'm actually checking right now. I'm actually curious. No, there isn't. It just gives you different price points based on your age. That's it.
Yeah, I'm kind of... I'm one of those people who has never touched Fortnite, and I never plan to touch Fortnite.
You're not missing out much.
I'm not a big shooter fan in the first place. Especially Battle Royale ones. I can play solo shooters because I'm not having to be responsible for anything else. I recently finished the Outer Worlds. But yeah.
Oh, the Outer Worlds is a really awesome game.
I loved it, yeah. And it's not something I usually play, but my partner borrowed it and borrowed it in a PlayStation 4 game from the library. So I played it, and now he's trying to get me to play Fallout, which I'm going to have to try at some stage. So apparently they're very similar.
Yes, they are very similar. I mean, the Outer Worlds is kind of filled in the void that Fallout left.
Okay, do you have a favorite character from the game?
A different one?
From back then. Like you've mentioned, it's not just Thomas. There's other characters. Do you have a favorite?
Oh boy. You see, this is a trick question because then I'm gonna have to talk about the other characters, and I can't. But I do have a favorite character. I can say that much, I think. And it is a girl. I'm saying too much. And she likes chess, okay? That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, cool.
There might be a chess game involved.
Cool.
It's not gonna be a fun chess game, but it's gonna be one hell of a chess game.
Was never one for chess myself. I can play it. I'm just not very good at it.
I know the rules. I lose every single time though.
I used to get sucked into playing with my brother, and he'd beat me every single time. Like, it was painful.
Relatable.
Hey, I might skip over that because that might be delving into something you can't talk about.
Okay.
Has being a game developer taught you anything that you would not have known if you'd never done game development?
I mean, it taught me basically everything I know. I learned English by myself, watching tutorials on YouTube and Cartoon Network. I learned programming, modeling, rigging, a bunch of stuff out of making video games.
Yeah.
Because it's such a weird art form when you think about it, because it encompasses everything mankind has ever done artistically. So, I mean, now I kind of got to the point in my life where this is what I want to do, like forever. Like if I had my own studio with my team for the rest of my life, and we just kind of made games for the rest of our lives, that would be perfect in my eyes, because we would have a certain degree of freedom, and making games really teaches you a lot. And especially for back then, I researched a lot about the disease. I watched documentaries, I read a lot of articles. There were so many channels that I just consumed daily for a couple of months. And if then, and you're right, if I didn't make games for like the past almost 10 years of my life, I wouldn't know half of what I know now.
And you've mentioned having anxiety and stuff like that. Like, if it wasn't for the games and doing the conventions and stuff like that, you wouldn't be out of your shell as much. Like,
yeah, that's correct. In a lot of aspects, it helped me grow, not only as a professional but as a person as well. And it made me come out of my comfort zone. And it helped. It really did. And I understand it wouldn't work for everyone, obviously, but it worked for me. And that's all I can ask for, really.
What game development software do you use?
Okay, let me give you the list. They're all in my desktop, so. Okay, so Unity, that's a classic. Everyone has Unity.
I use Unreal myself.
Use Unreal?
Yeah, I'm using Unreal for mine.
Fine choice as well.
I can't code, so the fact I can blueprint on Unreal is why I'm using that for mine.
I have yet to delve into blueprints myself, but that's on my to-do list for this year.
Oh, it's fairly simple. It's fairly easy. Like,
I've used like different visual code blocks and whatnot. I coded a lot in Lua, and Lua had a similar block system, and I loved it. But yeah, other than Unity, I have Dragon Bones for 2D animations. I have Twine to write narratives. FL Studio for music, Photoshop, Maya, Substance Painter. I have GitHub. What else do I have? Visual Studio, obviously. And I think that's it.
What made you choose Unity
Oh,
primarily?
and 3D Code too. It's because of C#. I'm more accustomed to C# in a way. And back when we started doing back then in the Global Game Jam, everyone used Unity at the college that we were studying at, so you naturally used Unity.
Yeah.
Unreal Engine wasn't an option, basically. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you use what they teach you to use, and you become
Let's not talk about my college experience, otherwise we're going to be here all day, and most of it's negative.
True. Okay, so there's obviously a rise in the popularity of indie games and indie game developers and stuff like that. Do you have any thoughts on to why that might be?
I think because it's becoming a lot more acceptable. When movies began in like the 1920s, people were super scared of them and they weren't sure how to feel about them as a medium. And video games kind of went through the same thing, but movies took a lot more time to evolve, and video games took like 2 decades. That's the only difference. The thing is, we adapted to movies as they went along, but games has just evolved too rapidly, and everyone is just freaking out. It's ridiculous the amount of technology advancements in just 3 years, from like the year 2001 to 2004. There's so much difference. Like, how? Like in movies that doesn't happen. Not even nowadays. Movies nowadays can look like they were made in the 60s, and 80s movie can look like they were made today. And video games don't have that. Video games are either technologically advanced or very artistic, or a little bit of both, like kind of in the middle.
Yeah, and you get the like the technology has come so far that like you've got cutscenes in video games that could have been shot with a normal camera. That's how good the programming is these days.
Yeah.
But you see that a lot in the AAA games, occasionally in the indie games and stuff like that, because obviously indie games, small teams, solo devs, they don't have as much that they can work with.
We don't exactly have like a recording studio or motion capture or anything, but we make do with what we have, and usually that's enough.
Yeah, plus obviously there's so many different programs and stuff to use, and there's YouTube tutorials all over the place for those who have no experience in game dev development, like myself.
That's
prior
basically
to
how I learned.
Yeah, that's how I'm learning too. Like I've had no experience in game dev work at all, but I've been sticking my hat in and been trying to do some stuff myself. And
well, that's why game development itself is so cool, because it's so accessible nowadays. Like, everyone can make a game. I've actually challenged a few of my friends to do this, where they just download Unity, watch tutorials for like 2 hours, and make a game until the end of the day. That's it. And then they're like, but that's impossible. Like, that's too hard. Like, I never coded anything before. No, it's literally so easy. You can make Pong in 30 minutes if you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's just 2 colliders and a ball. That's it. Done.
Yeah, whereas back in the 80s when they were doing Pong, that would have taken forever just to...
I think, didn't Pong take like 6 months to do just because they couldn't get the inputs right? Something along those lines. I remember the story.
Oh, I can't remember. And actually Pong might have been the 70s, because I know they had...
I think Pong was 1979, if I'm not mistaken. No, 1973, actually.
Yeah, I knew it was 70s or something, because I remember them playing Pong or something on that 70s show. So
Makes sense.
Yeah, like back in the very early game machines and stuff. Where are we? If, say, theoretically, a big game development company came to you and say, "We like what you've done, come work for us." If you could choose what company that would be, would you do it? And who would you choose?
This is a very tough question for me, okay? Because I have several companies that I'd like to work at, but I also realize that me working at those dream companies wouldn't bring me as much satisfaction as what I'm doing now, because now I'm doing my own thing. I'm doing a project that I want to do. I'm not working on Street Fighter 6. I don't want to work on Street Fighter 6, but I would love to work at Capcom on the Resident Evil games. That would be killer. You know you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, like, I get it.
Like I would be down to work at CD Projekt Red on their RPGs, but I don't want to be crunched to death, because that's currently what's happening with the delay at Cyberpunk. And no, guys, they're not having a 6-month delay so they can have more time to work on the game. They're pushing their employees to the max, and that's fucking terrible. Please stop crunching.
Yeah, I like that. There is a question I ask everyone that comes on Talking Indie, and I get that I get a very similar response from pretty much everyone, that they like, while working for a big company would probably bring more money and stuff like that, the satisfaction they're going to get from working on the games for them is not going to be same. Plus, there's the crunches and just all of that type of
in a realistic future, I can see myself working at AA companies like Ninja Theory or Fail Better Games, or developers along those lines, because they still have a bit of freedom, but at the same time they're not completely indie, so they have a lot more manpower and marketing capabilities and whatnot. They're the middle ground. And I think having too much artistic freedom can also be a bad thing. I mean, too much of a good thing is a bad thing. That's obvious. But I am afraid that I'm just gonna fall into a hole of, if I'm not working on the game I want to work in, then I can't work, and I don't want to fall into that hole.
Yeah.
Because when push comes to shove and we have to make games to make money, I'm gonna have to make them, even if I don't want to make those types of games. But that's what puts food on my plate, and I like eating. So
eating is good. Everyone has to eat.
Exactly. So certain sacrifices I wouldn't be, that hesitant to make, because they're sacrifices that everyone needs to make in this industry at one point or another. I mean, Stephen Cawson, the guy that made the Five Nights at Freddy's games, he made 41 games before he struck gold. That's a sacrifice.
Yeah.
Who the hell makes 41 games?
Someone slightly crazy.
That's my first question.
I can't imagine making 41 games. Although
I can imagine making 10 over the course of my lifetime, and the guy made 41.
Although, even a year ago, I couldn't imagine attempting to make a game, and I'm doing it. But yeah, what was I saying? Plus, I find, as when it comes to doing your own thing as an indie developer, as opposed to a AAA, a developer at a AAA company, you can put so much more of yourself and love into your game that where
exactly
you wouldn't be able to do that as a AAA developer, because your big boss of your company goes, "Here, this is your assignment. You're going to make this tree. Your job is to your job is to design and make this tree, and that's what your role is." yeah, you can put a lot of love and stuff into the tree, but it is not the same as being able to put all the love and stuff into the game.
Yeah, I actually have a story that I can share. I met a person that worked at Ubisoft in France 2 years ago, I think, at Lisbon Games Week. I meet everyone at conventions. It's normal, small country. And his entire job at Ubisoft. I don't know if you remember the Division trailer when it came out. There was this section where the player character was huddled against the car and he pushed the door in and closed the car's door.
Yes.
He coded that. Took him 4 months. That's all he did. I don't see myself doing that ever.
Yeah, neither can I.
I mean, sure, it's a cool detail, don't get me wrong, but what could you have done in those 4 months if you had a bit more freedom?
Exactly.
Sure, you closed the car's door, but then what?
Yeah. Just back then, have you implemented music into the game, or is that something you
Yes,
still?
we're gonna have a full-on dedicated soundtrack and everything. Music is very important for the game as a whole because music can just portray so much emotion, and we kind of just want to give the player a huge bombastic feeling, both visually and auditively. Since the game is going to be switching back and forth between past and present, the music has to change slightly too and give you very old-timey vibes when you're in the present, but give you very different kind of vibes when you're in the past, depending on the context of the situation and what you're currently doing as well.
Yeah, like for example, this is theoretically, I'm not saying it's happening or anything like that. Like even wandering around the house 40 years in the past, like there'd be. I'm trying to work out. Oh crap! The 80s was 40 years in the past. I feel old now.
Yeah.
Because I just realised, I was born in 1990 and I'm turning 30 this year, so that's 30 years past. Like, for example, like it might have been a scene set 40 years in the past. You'd have sort of a new wavy kind of music playing in the background to pretty much say, yeah, we're in the 80s.
To basically accommodate, the year difference and whatnot. The game deals with some themes from because of how the character was shaped, basically what he went through. He went to Vietnam, he's a war veteran, and that has a bit of impact on the narrative as well, because it was in the 70s, and 70s had very cyberpunkish techno music, and we kind of want to mix that with some very old-timey vibes, and that's a really, really weird challenge. But it can be done. We've been cooking some stuff. It's cool. It's pretty cool. I mean, I'm not making the music, otherwise it would be terrible, but...
Where are you sourcing your music?
Doing a good job.
Oh, sorry, it is someone from your team who's doing the music?
Yes, Caleb. Yes.
Yeah, because I know some people do the music themselves, or someone in the team does it. Some people outsource it. And
yeah, we have one of our team members making music. I do music myself as a hobby, but I'm not a musician, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I know how to play drums, and I have a cajon, and that's it, basically.
Yeah. Okay, are you a gamer yourself? And do you have any favorite games?
All right, if we're talking favorite video games, get ready. Oh boy, here we go. Okay, so Dead Space 2 is the best game ever made for 5 reasons. 1, no loading screens. 2, perfection from start to finish. The storyline never kicks down. It keeps you on your toes, and it's 8 hours of just pure everything. It's just everything I wanted. After that, I would have to say BioShock. The first BioShock, mind you. Not BioShock Infinite. We don't talk about BioShock Infinite, even though I really like the setting. I have to say World of Warcraft, because I've played that game for close to 15 years and I feel old now that I think about it. And it was one of my very first introductions to like video games as a whole. The first game I ever played was Crash Bandicoot on my PS1.
That was one of
That was my dad's.
Yeah, Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon were, they were some of the first ones I played. Yeah. But likewise, I've been doing the World of Warcraft thing for 15 years as well. I did start in vanilla, and then I had kids, and
you started in vanilla too.
Yep, and then I stopped playing shortly before Wrath of the Lich King was released, and then I came back to WoW just before the Legion 3 patch. So I did have a really big break there, but yeah.
Well, you kind of skipped the worst expansion, but you also skipped the best expansion. So I don't know how I would feel.
Yeah, like I'm assuming when you say worst expansion, you're talking Warlords of Draenor.
Yes. Oh my god.
Like,
oh boy.
I've played through all of Warlords of Draenor on an alt. And the storyline, I like the storyline, but the stuff I'm hearing about what made it the worst expansion was too little content and based and it being spread out too much, which I feel's been the main issue with BFA as well.
System it didn't fit.
Yeah, like who wants to just be cooped up in their garrison, not being sociable?
Right? I mean, doesn't that defeat the whole purpose of an MMO?
Yeah, like screw everyone else. I'm just going to sit here in my garrison and never leave.
Exactly. I get that other MMOs have like a housing system and whatnot, and WoW kind of tried to do the same thing with the garrison, but it didn't work. Let's just leave it in past. But yeah, other games that I love, I mean, Doom was something. And I'm talking about 2016 Doom, not the original Doom, even though that game is also, a milestone in gaming history. But the 2016 Doom just came out of left field and surprised me in every single good way possible.
Yeah.
Because it's the Doom I've always wanted, and now it's getting a sequel, and it looks even crazier, and I'm all for it. Give me metalcore and demons to kill, and I'll be there all day.
I'm going to pause you there for a second. We'll continue talking about this. This is the last actual question I have. So if you guys have questions for viewer questions, you can start chucking them in now, and we'll start answering them when we finish here. Anyway, you can continue.
I don't know, what other games? Oh yeah, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. My favorite RPG ever.
Haven't played it, been told I need to.
I have a thing for vampires. Not, crystal lovey-dovey vampires, but the actual like politics and vampire world and whatnot, and how they manifest inside society and whatnot. I love it. I find it so interesting. And that game scratched the niche that I didn't know I have. And Vampire came out like 2 years ago, or Vampire, however you said that name. And that game didn't do anything for me. I just felt like a random, thug going, I have blood powers, cool. Not the same.
Maybe a game about vampires might be in the cards for the future for you.
I wouldn't be against it. I can say that much. But it would be such a huge project if I ever made anything with vampires involved, because I would want, the actual lore and everything to make sense.
Yeah, you'd want the lore to be as accurate and stuff as possible. Yeah. While I think of it too, voice acting, is that something you're implementing?
We have voice acting in the game already.
How did you source that, or is that?
Yes, we sourced it. The main character is being voiced by Andy Mack. He worked for Dying Light 2. He has a lot of other projects. I can actually link his thingy, and he'll thank me for it, obviously. Yeah, here we go. He's actually a super stand-up guy. He's super nice. And I don't know, he's a person. You know what I mean? Like he's not like full on 100% business, and he's not full on 100% dumb. He's kind of in the middle like me, and I like that.
Yeah. I'm not sure he can give you any spoilers, Mitsurai.
Give us a spoiler for back then. You have Alzheimer's. Sorry, dude. I just ruined the whole game.
I think I've probably probed for as many spoilers as we're gonna get. I'm trying to think.
We've been keeping everything in the wraps lately because we have a lot of stuff planned for the coming months, and this is kind of like the calm before the storm.
Have you got plans for a Kickstarter or?
No, but we are doing good progress to go to London at London Games Finance, and we are hoping to land the investment there.
Okay, it's up to you if you
And-
want to answer that one, because it could technically be a spoiler. They want to know how many daughters Thomas has.
Oh, he has one daughter. I know what he wants to know. He has 3 kids total, 2 boys and 1 girl. You happy?
Do we have any more questions? Is there a demo or anything that people that I could link possibly if anyone wants to check it out, or is that still being?
There is a beta thingy, alpha, whatever you want to call it. It's a prototype. It's what we showed at the convention in November. We have a little form that you can fill out, and then we'll send you the link because we're still like testing everything. We don't want to release the demo globally yet because there's something missing in the game, and I think someone is gonna know how to say that properly, and I kind of want to see if that happens or if I'm wrong. That's one of the reasons.
Can you send me that link on Twitter, because I'd like to check it out myself.
Of course.
And when the demo comes out, I'm more than willing to, because I do a indie showcase where I play all the demos and stuff. I play a bunch of demos and stuff. I do that once a week, so I'll definitely, when the demo comes out, fit that in.
Of course, I'll be more than happy.
Because I love narrative story games like this. So
you'll enjoy this. But yeah, basically what I'm giving you. But yeah, sure, go ahead.
Any pricing plan for the game's final release yet?
Oh, pricing. We're not exactly sure, but it's gonna be under $12. Okay, like it's not gonna be more than that. I'm aiming towards $8.99, but I'm still unsure. That's basically the margin that I'm giving. But no, it's not gonna be super expensive. It's not. It's not the type of game that can actually be expensive because it's a 3-hour game, 4-hour game at best.
Yeah, and
then you can replay it a few times.
Yeah, and if you charge too much for something like that,
yeah,
people.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I think Firewatch is a great game, but it's way too overpriced.
Yeah, and I think I had a similar thing with What Remains of Edith Finch. I think because I think that was $20 for me. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
That's kind of what very narrative-driven games have been doing for the past 3, 4, 5 years. They've kind of landed at the $18, $20 price point. And while the narrative and the game themselves are very good, the length doesn't justify the price, and that's just how the industry goes, and we're being a bit more lenient on that.
Yeah, like mine's a narrative. Yeah, we'll call it walking simulator. Some people call it. Yeah, that's what mine is. I'm still working out. Like most of what I'm doing is building environments. I'm still working on story and stuff. But yeah, I'm probably going to be similar with you regarding pricing. Like if I don't list it for free, which I probably might, but yeah.
That's a good idea.
Especially because
the last thing you want to do as a game developer is making the consumer think they're being, scuffed.
I
Because
made
if you buy a
grass.
game-
I did the grass successfully, great. But I did it. Sorry.
Okay, I got the form here.
Cool.
Can link this to you.
Yes, it was beautiful grass. I was so proud of myself when I made grass. Well, it was just that, just something as simple as making grass and getting the grass to move properly. Yeah, if you're interested in trying out the alpha and the beta of back then, there's a form in there you can fill out and to potentially get a chance to have a look at things and give feedback and stuff.
Please break the game. I'll be very much appreciated. Thank you.
I'm one of those people especially if I know I'm testing an alpha or a beta build, I'm one of those people who do, like, I set out with the intention, what can I do to break this game?
Yeah. Well, I was just like everyone to keep in mind that this build is 3 months old, okay? A lot of stuff has changed. But if you do find something new, I will let you know and I will thank you for it. And I will proceed to bang my head against the wall because I have to fix it.
Well, that's always fun. You end up spending like 24 hours just trying to fix something really, really simple. Do we have any more questions before we finish up? I'll copy that link because I'll chuck that in the YouTube video as well.
Someone just registered. I don't know who, but I got an email.
It's working. It wasn't me. I'll do that when I finish up here. Well, that might be all the questions we have. So we will end things here. Thank you so much for joining us, Ruben. I look forward to seeing. I'm going to give you a quick chance to just, I don't know, what do I call it again? Plug your stuff, basically, to sit there and go, like, this is your opportunity to say, everyone,
we came prepared.
Buy this, follow me here, do this, do that, you have to. This is your opportunity to do that.
Boom. There's the bomb.
Cool. I will grab.
Guys, follow me on Discord, Facebook, Twitter, IndieDB, GameJolt, TitchU, IGDB, and Cartridge. Thank you. Cool. You can find the game literally everywhere.
I will grab those because they'll.
Although I strongly recommend our Discord server because we're very active there.
Cool.
And we usually just post a lot of dumb stuff. And Twitter as well. Discord and Twitter are what I usually use the most. Facebook is just, it's Facebook. I mean, I can't vouch for Facebook that much anymore.
Oh, I barely use Facebook these days.
I don't like Facebook as a platform.
Oh, I barely use it these days.
Yeah, I don't judge you.
Yeah.
But Twitter, I really like Twitter. I started using Twitter like 4 years ago and I just fell in love with it.
Oh, I've had my Twitter since like 2013. I've just like never used it up until I started streaming. And then, yes, I started using it and yeah, growing pretty fast, pretty quickly. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me today, Ruben. All of the links are in chat. Or if you're watching on YouTube, they'll be in the description down below. I will be back for Talking Indie same time next week. Who have we got next week? I
want to know too. who's following up in my footsteps? This was your first edition of this year, right?
Yes, this was the first one of this year. Was supposed to start last week.
I hope it went well.
But the person that was supposed to have had to reschedule. Okay, next week we have Sean Spencer, who is the solo dev of a game that's going under Kickstarter in a few days, called Camp Wolf Creek. So that's who we've got next week. But anyway, guys, I will catch you guys then. Much love to you.